Alrighty, today we're going to take some really simple setup photos of this little product that we have up here, a little dollar store item, a little bottle of Comet from the dollar store. And what we're going to do is we're going to shoot something, and I guess this exercise is sort of called by the numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to shoot this with just two lights on our set here. And with the two lights, we're going to read the background values and read the product values and make sure that we have an image that's been captured with the appropriate information so that it'll reproduce well. It'll have a background that's blown out to white, not blown out so that it's, halating around the image, but blown out so that there's no detail in the background. Yet we're still going to maintain some detail in the product. And our values that we're looking at right now is to have the background somewhere around 255, which we know from our histograms is going to be white with no detail. And if we can keep the product somewhere around the 241 level, that would be ideal, because that's white with detail. So let's set that up. Actually, let me walk through what I've got going on here right now. Few things. Let me flip this around here. First off, it's just a two light setup. I've got one light over here, that's lighting up the background, and I've got this light back up here that's hitting the product. You could use an umbrella or something like that if you wanted to for these lights. You could put an umbrella up here. You could even put an umbrella on the background, and that'll spread the light a little bit more. But I think learning to sort of see and control the light is a little trickier when it's just a bare bulb. So I'm going to start with this today. Also, a bare bulb on here. The bottle has little tiny curvatures to it. And if we use a hard light on it, it's going to accentuate those a little bit more than if we soften it up with a box or something like that. So what have I got going on my set here? Well, a few things are worth noting. First off, these are just little blocks I'm going to use to hold my my little gobos on the side, my black cards on the side. But what's important here to note right off the bat is my product is sitting on a white surface, which is sitting on top of apple crates. Now, most of these apple crates, they usually come in, I don't know, they're usually painted black or they're wood colored. We don't want to put this on there because what'll happen is this surface here, this one's white, so it's not going to contaminate the product at all. If anything, it's just going to bounce more light back up into it, and that's fine. If we took this away and we had this sitting on here, the bottom's going to act as like a negative fill. So it's going to put a black highlight in the bottom, and we may not want that. Or at least we want to be able to control it. The other thing that we've got going on here is this little glass. This is just a little dollar store item. It's a little red wine glass, I think. And what we're using that for is we're going to put the product on top of it. And you notice when the product sits on top, right at the base here, the light still transmits through it so I can see behind it. If you use a block or something else in here, it's going to affect the shadow on the bottom of the product. And here, it's going to be a nice clean highlight or negative fill, because my light's kind of coming from above. So it's going to sort of do a bit of a reverse on there. So what we're going to do is leave it on this glass bottle, make sure it's centered up, do a test frame in Capture One, and see where we're at. So let's give that a go. Okay, here's what we got going on. So I have my background light over here. You can see this is an Elechrome 600. It's just firing onto the background, that nose seam back there. And it's turned, I don't know what the power level on is, doesn't really matter. But I've got that turned on to the background to illuminate my background. And I've got my other Elechrome here. It's coming down and illuminating my product over here. And what I'm using for my camera today is my Canon, whatever that is, Mark something or other. And I got a macro lens on there. You don't need a macro lens, but something around a 70 mil is good. I think that's 100 macro. And I've got my Pocket Wizard over here that's triggering to the slaving to the strobes. And then I've tethered using one of the tether tools cables. I really like this cable. It works almost without fail, which is great because in yesteryear, that was always the fail point. So I've got that tethered in here, and I'm tethered in with right into Capture One. So if I have a look at Capture One here, click my I love this little button they have in here, so you can actually shoot from here. And if I look on screen, woo, that's bright. Don't know if that's quite centered, but it's quite bright. And so what we want to do is we want to use this little value thing up here, and we want to add the color readout on top of our screen. So if I click on this one to make it active, and then I click on my background, you see how it gives me these numbers? This is what we're going to use today. And look at that, I'm at 255 already. It's almost like I hadn't done this before. So 255 is what we're after for the background. And that's 255 all the way around. But our product in here, 240, it's flaring out. Like this highlight edge here, 255, that means there's no detail in there. We don't want that. And I think what's happening, if I'm looking at the set over here, pardon me, I think what's happening is that light back here is just, it's flaring out of the background. It's I should either move that forward or gobo it off. And I think what I'll do is, I'm gonna gobo it off. Let me come over here and flip that on. What I have is I got like this little block of wood, and I'm just gonna clamp this black card to it. So, take that on here. Now, you sort of see what I've got going on here? This is now blocking off. This is blocking off the light from this from hitting my product, and now my product looks a little bit blacker. So let's go back and try another frame. Kind of ignore the color balance of the set here. In the studio, I've got like LED lights back here, LED lights and tungsten lights. So the color balance is all over the place, but because we're using strobe, these are daylight balanced. So my image in Capture One should come out properly balanced if I'm properly exposed. More about that later. Anyways, let's try that again. We're going to click on Capture One. And what we're looking for is to see if this area here comes down any ooh, look at that, it did. Comes down any darker. So that's what we want. So we now have definition between the shoulder of the product on this side and the background. That's exactly what we're after. This side's still not quite right. We need a little bit more, I guess you call it negative fill when you put black cards in here. So I think that's partly because my light here is, if I'm looking at my set, it's up here. I should move it so it's coming straight at it, and that'll look a little bit more symmetrical on the actual set. I also need to put some black cards in around here to sort of pull the edges down. So I'm going to shut the camera off for a second, add those black cards that are down here onto the set using those little blocks, and then try one more exposure. So let's give that a go. All right, so I got a couple of black cards on my set. Let's have a look at those, and we'll sort of see what kind of reaction the light's having to that. So as you can see here, I've got my product. I haven't changed it, I haven't moved anything. All I've done is I've just sort of added these black cards around the outside edge. That goes down. Around the outside edge. And these are acting as a negative fill, so hard to tell with all the modern lights and the studio lights on. But what's happening is they're putting a little black edge here because they're stopping the light. You can do it one of two ways. You can put it behind and stop the background from reflecting, or you can pull the cards forward on the set, and then it'll cast a shadow onto the product itself. So I've gone with the route of putting them on the set a little bit farther backwards, and that's going to stop the reflection that's coming back. I look like a bit of a farmer today, don't I? I don't mind that. I was doing some work in the kitchen. Anyway, so here, let me move my foreground light over. So this light here, I'm just going to push it so it's actually right behind the camera and coming right in on my product. And then let me give that another shot in Capture One, and let's see what our numbers are telling us now. Alrighty, let's try this. And you'll notice that when I click the shutter in Capture One, the numbers go back to the same spot, but they do update. So this one's a little bit out of my frame, so I'm going to move that one over a little bit, and I can see that my new number, it's still 255. 255, 255. Now I don't want these ones here I don't need, so the ones I don't need, if I hold down the Option key and then click on it, it's just going to drop them out. So I'll take those ones out. 244, that's not bad. 239, that's not bad either. So I think maybe I could probably drop my top light down a little bit, but I think we're pretty close here. So let's say, my dinner's ready. Let's say that that's good for today. Well, I think we're pretty close. That's pretty good. Now, next week I'll pick up on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about how you might want to close cut these using the channel masking and stuff to make it a lot easier in Photoshop. Because these kind of simple little product things, this is mostly done whenever you're doing something for, I use Amazon as an example, because when people need something done for Amazon, they want the background white. But if it was done for something else and you need to have a clipping path or something like that, we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. But anyways, this is pretty close. and I'm gonna go eat dinner. All right, thanks.